People don't get why these people would make these things up. Did you know that Ivana and Marla Maples were married before Melania Trump? Also, you won't believe why Donald Trump's marriage to beauty queen Marla Maples ended. To be honest, Trump's marriage to Marla was so shocking and interesting that whenever we think of Marla we can't help but remember the shocking details. It was shocking to hear the reports around the time of the breakup. After 20 years, Marla has finally proven what we already knew. But what did they really do to each other? Also, why did they only get married 6 years? Check back to find out. Think about how they used to be together. Do you know that Trump started dating Marla Maples while he was still married to Ivana Trump, his first wife? Marla is an actress, model and TV personality from Georgia. She started dating Trump in the late 1980s, and their relationship was nothing but controversial. Not only was the fact that Donald Trump was married controversial, but so was the fact that they were seen together. It was actually very well known, which is why so many people were interested. How could someone do something so wrong in public? This went on for more than 4 years. They even broke up and got back together before Trump divorced Ivana in 1990. It was still February 16, 1990. And Trump was still married to Ivana. The front page of the New York Post had a shocking title. The story said that Marla was bragging to her friends that her relationships with Trump were the best she had ever been. The news media went crazy over this, and it was all over the front pages of New York City's papers for weeks. Even though other big events were happening at the same time, like Nelson Mandela getting out of jail, and the bankers Drexel Burnham Lambert going bankrupt. Even though it sounds terrible, this wasn't the worst. When Ivana and Marla Maples met for the first time in December 1989, something else incredible took place. It looks like Trump and his family were off skiing in Aspen, Colorado, but he had also quietly set up for his mistress Marla to be in Aspen at the same time. That's how Marla and Ivana met. Ivana wrote a book called Raising Trump in which she went into great depth about what happened in Aspen that terrible day. She asked, "Can you picture how shocked and confused Ivana must have been during this somewhat embarrassing event?" What she said was that she was sure her marriage to Trump was over after meeting Marla. So just as she said would happen, Trump publicly asked Ivana for a divorce in February 1990, about 2 months after that meeting. You'd think that Trump and Marla would be happy together again once Ivana was gone. What happened though was different. They got married soon after, but they split up 4 years later, and got divorced 2 years after that. You might ask why. In any case, Marla has finally told the shocking truth. Reasons why Marla and Trump broke up. Donald Trump and Marla Maples got married in December 1993, 3 years after Trump split up with Ivana. Trump owned the Plaza Hotel in New York City at the time of the wedding, so it was a very fancy event. More than 1,000 people, including famous people and important business people, attended the event. But the marriage was doomed from the start. Marla has said that their marriage had problems that neither of them could have prevented. But we found proof that both Marla and Trump were actively responsible for ending their marriage. Let's break it down. In reality, a lot of people were shocked when Trump and Marla announced they were getting married. This was especially true after his messy divorce from Ivana, which finished with a pretty large settlement. The Chicago Tribune said that Trump locked Ivana out of her office at the Plaza Hotel while they were going through the divorce process. They started a legal fight right away over the validity of the 4 prenuptial agreements they had made over the years. Remember that this split was talked about all over the world, mostly because of the trouble between Trump, Ivana and Marla. In fact, New York newspapers ran front-page stories about the events for 11 days in a row. The story was even the only thing Liz Smith wrote about in her gossip piece for 3 months. In the end, the divorce was finalized in December 1990, but there was a catch. As part of the divorce deal, Ivana had to sign a non-disclosure agreement. She also had to get Trump's permission before speaking out in public about their failed marriage. Ivana also got $14 million, a 45-room mansion in Connecticut, an apartment in the Trump Plaza, and the right to use Trump's fancy resort Mar-a-Lago for 1 month every year as part of their divorce deal. When Trump chose to settle down with Marla, he made sure that wouldn't happen again. Because of this, he and Marla signed a very strict prenuptial agreement before they got married. The terms of the deal were made public after a few years. It was claimed that Trump agreed to give Marla only $1 million if they broke up within 5 years, plus an extra $1 million to buy a house. It might not seem like much, but his first wife Ivana got more than $25 million in cash and property. This is where things get tricky. A few months after the wedding at the Plaza Hotel, Marla told Vanity Fair that she thought she might have been forced to sign the contract. She said that the prenup was the main issue all along. She agreed to it because she thought she and her new husband would talk about it again later. They never did though. This statement by Marla made a lot of noise in the media, and many people thought that their marriage was built on shaky ground. At the time, a famous divorce lawyer told People magazine, "I can't think of greater coercion than a woman having a baby in her belly, and a guy telling her I won't marry you unless you sign. What does she need to do? She would probably sign a lottery ticket if he gave it to her." Do you not believe that this deal made Marla feel something? Even more so when it was clear that Trump was worried she was only with him for his money. There's no doubt that this contract hurt the basis of their marriage. But that's not all that was said about the prenup. It also seems to have said that Trump would pay child support for their daughter Tiffany Trump until she turned 21. If Tiffany got a full-time job, joined the military, or joined the Peace Corps, Trump would stop paying child support. In terms of their daughter Tiffany, did you know that the birth of Tiffany was a big reason why Trump chose to marry Marla? A short time after Marla gave birth to Tiffany, Trump asked her to marry him, and she said yes. Marla also said that the December 7, 1993, accident on the Long Island Railroad made him think about his life and what was most important to him. That's when he made the offer. It may look romantic, but the events that led to Tiffany's birth were anything but glamorous. Seems that Trump's first words, when he heard that Marla was pregnant with Tiffany, were, "Excuse me, what happened?" Trump talked about how he felt about the baby news on the Howard Stern show. "We agreed that it was a good thing. Tiffany is my wonderful little girl, but at the time I was like, excuse me, what happened? This is something I didn't know." Then I asked, "What are we going to do about this?" It was when Marla asked him, "Are you sure? Today is the most beautiful day ever." He finally answered with an uninterested, "Oh great." You can guess that this wasn't the best thing for Marla to hear. It also showed that Trump probably wasn't thinking about marriage or kids at that time. These are some of the smaller problems that caused Marla and Trump's marriage to end. There are other much bigger and more shocking problems that ended their happily ever after. Important things that caused the marriage to end. Actually, Marla has said that the main reason her marriage to Trump ended was because she and Trump were very different people whose values stopped matching up. You should remember that Marla and Trump were 17 years apart in age and came from very different places. Trump was born and raised in Queens, New York, into a family that was both rich and driven. Fred, his father, was a famous builder of homes. He also raised Trump in a home that stressed business sense, competition and winning. Of course, this only made Trump more determined to succeed and gain power and money. On the other hand, Marla grew up in a very simple and holy home in Cohata, a small town in the country of Georgia. Faith, kindness, and a sense of community were important to Marla as she grew up, and they were the exact opposite of Trump's selfish and transactional way of thinking. The issue wasn't just with how they were raised. Because they were different, they ended up having two different goals. What Marla said was that it ruined everything. She said, "Donald and I came from very different places. I wanted a person who could see me for who I am, and be there for me emotionally. But Donald was often thinking about his business, his public image, and his goals. Soon it was clear that we were living separate lives, and not the same one. Donald's world was ruled by power, business, and the desire to be successful in public, while mine was ruled by connection, honesty and spiritual growth. Their very different life goals were very obvious, and it was a big reason why they broke up in the end. At that time, Trump's main goal was to build a huge business empire, and his drive made it hard for him to settle or work with others. He knew what it was like to be married, and a dad after his first wife Ivana died. Even though he took care of his kids, his work always came first. It sounds like this made Marla very angry in her marriage, and she often felt alone and confused. She said that they decided to go their different ways after experiencing this problem for many years. People who are married hope to bring out the best in each other. But after being together for a long time, Marla said, they both saw that they weren't doing that for each other. Trump and Marla broke up in 1997, and their divorce was completed in 1999. As part of a conversation, Marla talked more about why the marriage ended. As you might have guessed, she said it could get a little heated, because I came in with strong family values, and a strong desire to grow spiritually. I've always aimed to be the best. He also brought an upbeat view of the world with him. Get out there and make some money. Asked what about Trump she liked. She said she fell in love with him, because she could feel how weak he was.